This topic is somewhat halachically related, but it's a little out of the box as well. We begin with number one. We begin with a statement of the Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Teshuvah, in the third Perek, says the Rambam, Shloisha, by the way, there's more copies here if anybody would like. Shloisha hein ha-koifrim b'Torah. There are three people that are considered koifrim in Torah, non-believers in the Torah. Right, so the Rambam there is discussing all types of Yidden who are outside the fold, beyond the pale. And obviously you have people that have problems in their emunah of the Eibishter, but in this halacha, the Rambam is specifically speaking of those that have an issue with Torah per se. Not with God, but with the Torah as we have it. There are three people that are considered koifrim b'Torah. Number one, ha'omer she'ein ha'Torah mi'im Hashem. If somebody says, I believe in the Eibishter, but I don't believe that he gave us the Torah. The Torah was made up either by Moshe himself or by somebody later on.
Made up what? From his mind?
Or from his heart, or from his gut, or from his,
Muhammad?
Anything. Even if you believe Moshe wrote it, and you believe Moshe did commune with the Eibishter, but you believe that Torah, or even parts of Torah, some of the things were Moshe's own idea, it's mamash a kofer batorah. And you lose your chelik in olam haba. It's very serious. Continues the Rambam, afilu pasuk echad. You think we're talking about someone who says Moshe made the whole thing? No. We're talking of someone who believes Moshe is a Navi Emes. Moshe is a real deal. And 612 mitzvahs Moshe heard from the Eibishter. But there's one mitzvah that really gets to me. Which one? I don't know. Everybody probably has one mitzvah which is really gets under their skin. And you're not so sure that the Eibush actually told that to Moshe. Afilu pasuk echad, afilu teva achad, said the Rambam, even one word. Even one word you think Moshe added on his own. Im amar Moshe omrei mipiatzma, if you say that Moshe said it on his own, and Moshe wrote it on his own, harizeh kofer batorah. In other words, we have a tradition, the Gemara says that when Moshe wrote the Torah, the Eibishter told him word for word, letter for letter, what to write down. The Eibishter oimer, and Moshe would repeat the word, and Moshe would write it down. Not even an iota came from his own. The Rambam says even one word, you're a kofer b'Torah. It's very serious.
Isn't there some stuff that Moshe really changed on his own?
We'll see. Well, maybe other people change. V'chein ha-kofer b'pirusha. Even if somebody believes that the whole Torah Shebiksav comes from Moshe, but they have a problem with Torah Shebal Peh, like there were many Yidden, unfortunately, over the generations, only too many. In fact, during the second Beis HaMikdash, there was a major split between the Yidden. You had the Tzedukim and the Perushim. You had the Perushim, which were us, those that followed the rabbis, and the Tzedukim, those that had an issue with the rabbinical authority, and therefore denied the accuracy of the traditions that the rabbis had passed down. They denied Torah Shebal Peh. The truth is that Tzedukim had their own Torah Shebal Peh, because if how do you even know how to translate any pasuk? They had their own traditions, but they deny the Torah Shebal Peh that the rabbis have passed down from Dor to Dor. V'hikchish magideh, and you dispute those that pass on the tradition. Kagoin saduk ubaisos, like two people in the second Beis Hamikdash, students of Antigonus, Sadok, and Baisus. That's the second kofer. The third one is ha'omer, someone who says sha'boire hichlif mitzvah zu b'mitzvah acheres. If someone says, I believe in God, I believe in the Torah, I believe in everything, but I also believe that the Eibush had a change of heart, and no longer does he want us to do A, B, and C. He's changed it to something else. Ukvar botla Torah zu, and the original Torah is bottle. Afal pishi yosim Hashem, I believe it was from God, but I believe God changed it. Kugoin hanoitzim v'hagrim, like the Christians, the Arabs, kol echad mishloisha elu kofer batorah. Each one of these three is a kofer batorah. B'chal, the Rambam had a harsh view on the Christians. I mean, this l'chayr is unanimous that the Christians are kofer batorah. There happens to also have been another debate between the Rambam and the Chachmei Tosfos. Is Christianity mamash considered avodah zarah? The big difference is, if you see the Rambam paskin that because Islam is not considered avodah zarah, because they just believe in a false prophet, but because it's not avodah zarah, You don't have to give up your life if you're being pressed into accepting Islam. And it's known the Rambam himself, or at least the Rambam's antagonists, said about the Rambam that after he fled Spain from the Almohades and he spent 5 years in Morocco, the Rambam spent 5 years in Morocco learning under Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, who was a big Rosh Yeshiva. Unfortunately, Yehuda Hachasid himself was killed by the Arabs, and the Rambam knew they were coming for him, and he said it was a Mitzvah Shabbos. He fled the city as fast as he could. They ran to the port, they got on a boat, and they spent a month heading to Eretz Yisrael. But apparently when the Rambam was in Morocco, he had to masquerade as a Muslim because his life was in danger. Now, whether it's true or not, the Rambam did say to others that it was mutter to do that, because accepting Islam is not avodah zarah.
That's why we're allowed to go to a mosque, but not to a church.
Right. But the Rambam would hold that Christianity is a no-no, it's avodah zarah. Not everybody agrees. One of the big rabbinic controversies that took place in the 16th century was the smicha controversy, by reinstituting smicha. And the two big players was somebody by the name of Rabbi Yaakov Bey Rav, Mari Bey Rav, and the other one was Reb Levi ben Chaviv, the Aurbach. Now both of them were born in Spain, and both of them fled in 1492. And they both made their way to Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yaakov Bey Rav was a couple years older than the Aurbach, and Rabbi Yaakov Bey Rav, Mari Bey Rav, he went to Tzfas and he opened up his world famous yeshiva. And the Aurbach was a Rav in Jerusalem, in Yerushalayim. And the Mari Bey Rav wanted to bring back the real authentic smicha, to be able to give people malchus, etc., the real authentic smicha. And the Aurbach was vehemently against it. And there were letters, very sharp letters between the two. And in one of the letters, the Mari Bey Rav says, don't forget what you did in Portugal. Because the Aurbach's, the Reb Levi ben Chaviv was from a very prominent Sephardic family. His father, Reb Yankov ben Chaviv, wrote the Ein Yankov, with a pirish on the Ein Yankov. And in 1492, when they fled Spain, they went to Portugal, because Portugal's doors were open until 1497. For a couple of years, it was the king of Portugal was more tolerant. He was more interested in the Yiddish money than his Christian beliefs. So for a couple of years, he was more tolerant. So the many Yiddish families moved there. But then the Gzeiros happened in Portugal as well. And the Mari Bey Rav tells the Aurbach, don't forget what you did in Portugal. You masqueraded as a Christian. Apparently he ate treifus also. He had to. And, Mari Bey Rav brings it up in his letters, which is... That's right. We had a share about it, but we did. We mentioned this.
That this masquerading as a Christian.
Yeah, we mentioned it. Yes. Yeah. I didn't mention that he ate treif. Okay, all right. Listen.
Lichora.
But
Allegedly.
Now, according to the Ram, masquerading as a Christian is pashut avodah zarah. But b'chlal the chachmei HaTosfos, we're not so sure. It's not so clear. It depends exactly what you believe. There's many different denominations amongst the Christians. But either way, the Rambam's pas saying over here, l'chayr, unanimous fact. Whether Christianity is avodah zarah or not, which l'chayr it is, but it's definitely Kofer Batorah. That goes without saying. Now, so the Rambam says there are three people that are Kofer Batorah, and the first one is someone who says even one iota Moshe wrote on his own. That's number one. So this takes us to number two. You'll see how it relates to this week's parsha. This is a letter from Reb Moshe Feinstein. Now, Bechlal, Reb Moshe Feinstein was a very patient man. And this tshuva is very uncharacteristic of him, to the point that some say that part of the tshuva was not written by him, but some of his students got pen happy and wrote things in his name. The story was like this. There was in Zurich in Switzerland, this is in the early 70s, somebody got hold of a manuscript that's attributed to Reb Yehuda Hachasid. Reb Yehuda Hachasid, we know, was one of the greatest of the Rishonim. He lived in Germany. He was born about 1150, passed away in 1217, and he was one of the greatest of the great. He was a great Kabbalist and a great Baal Nigla, and we know the Alter Rebbe himself said tremendous things about him. It was said about Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid that had he been in the times of the Gemara, he would have been an Amora. Had he been in the times of the Tanoim, he would have been a Tana. And a Navi, he would have been a Navi as well. The greatest praise, although the Frierdiker Rebbe once said, you know the difference between him and the Alter Rebbe was? But Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, had he been in the times of the Gemara, he would have been an Amora. Had he been in the times of the Mishneh, he would have been. Had he been in the times of the Nevi'im, he would have been a prophet. But Papayil, he lived in the times of the Rishonim, so he didn't reach that level. But the Alter Rebbe was an Amora, he was a Tana, he was a Navi. So the Alter Rebbe had a one-up. But nevertheless, we know the Rabbeim said incredible things about Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. And there was a manuscript found, and there was a fellow that wanted to print it. Okay? The rabbi in Zurich at the time, his name was Daniel Levy, and he looked at the manuscript and he saw some troubling things in the manuscript. And he wasn't so sure that we should print it. So he wrote to Reb Moshe Feinstein. So let's read number 2 on the right-hand side. Ma'acher shekibalti b'doyer, I received in the post, shel esmol of yesterday, oid michtav, another letter, eich shemar ploini, that your balabos misakish is being in action. Lo hoitzias ha-sefer shehu al shem Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, to print the sefer, k'moi shehu, the way it is, full of some strange things, as we'll see. Mucher chani lo hashiv teikif, I have to respond right away. Af shaloi nakol kol kach mitzad chulshasi lo yaleinu. Although it's hard, I'm feeling weak. Hashem yichazkeni, may God be mechazik me. So let's read a little bit. It's pretty simple reading, but let's go. V'hinei, says Reb Moshe Feinstein, in Sanhedrin Daf Tzadik Tes, there's a brisa. The brisa says, Kidvar Hashem boze, who is somebody that disgraces the words of Hashem? Zeh ha'omer ain't Torah, someone who says Torah is not from heaven. Afilo Omar, the whole Torah is from heaven, except for one pasuk that Hashem didn't say it. Rather, Moshe mipiatzmoi, he also despises the word of God, and the pasuk says you get chorus. And then he quotes a Rambam in Pirush HaMishnayos, the Rambam to Sanhedrin, in the last parak where the Rambam writes his famous 13 principles of faith. The Rambam writes, B'Yesod HaShmini, in the 8th principle, this idea that anyone that says that even an iota of a pasuk Moshe wrote on his own is a kofer. Moshe was a faithful transmitter. Every word, every letter he heard from God, and each word is just as holy as the other. And that's where the Rambam writes, it doesn't matter if it's the pasuk Shema Yisrael, or if it's some random pasuk like the sister of Leighton was Timna, or some of the other random psukim you have in Sefer Bereshis, which seem to be completely irrelevant. Now, basically, the Ramban says that the whole Torah is Hashem's names, right? So the meaning that when we read it, it has one meaning. That's the way the words are divided to us. But there's many layers of meaning, and they're all equally the names of the Eibishter, and no word is more holier than the other. It's all Moshe writing from the Eibishter. And the Rambam says Moshe only wrote what was said to him from God. That's why it's called a mechoker, because it's a transcriber. And there's no difference between B'nei Chom Kushum Mitzrayim, who Chom's kids were, or V'shem Ishto Mehet Havel, the pasuk there, or Timna was a Pilegesh, or Anoich Hashem Lekecho Shema Yisrael, says the Rambam. It's all from God. Fine. Then he quotes a Gemara in Baba Basra. There happens to be a well-known debate about the last 8 psukim in the Chumash. The last 8 psukim in the Chumash that speak about Moshe's death. It says Moshe died. Now, anything written in the Chumash was written after it happened. If the pasuk says Moshe died, it means Moshe died, and now the pasuk is telling you what happened. So who wrote it? If Moshe died, how could he write it? So one Tana holds Taka Yeshua wrote the last 8 psukim. The other Tana says Moshe wrote it, and he wrote it before he died. Hashem told him what to write, and he wrote it, and he was crying. He wrote it bedema, which either means he wrote it with actual tears, or he wrote it, and while he wrote it, he was crying. That's also a major debate, but that's a Simchas Torah shir, a very interesting sugi on its own. But says Reb Moshe, even the opinion that holds that Yeshua wrote the last 8 psukim, he also heard it word for word from God. Right? But he didn't write on his own. Fine. Let's still on the right hand side. Let's go to the next piece. Ayin Piskei Atoisis Menachos Siman Reish Lamed Aleph. So there's a statement from the Piskei Atoisis in Menachos. K'shekasav Ezra HaTorah. When Ezra wrote the Torah, right? You know, the Gemara says that Ezra, the Torah was being forgotten, and Ezra Pasha brought everything back. He was Machzir Torah li Yisrael. He brought everything back to the fold. And Ezra was a Sefer. He's called Ezra Sefer. He wrote a Sefer Torah. Asa Nakuda, that Ezra made some dots on the words Hanistoras LaHashem Elokeinu. He wrote dots on top. There's dots. What do the dots refer to? The pasuk there is in Parshas Chukas. The pasuk is saying that one yid is responsible for another, not Hanistoras, not for someone else's sins he does behind closed doors. Because how could you know about it? But Haniglas Lanu, what's openly revealed. If you see another yid doing something wrong, it's your responsibility to rebuke them and tell them off. But there's dots on it to teach you that even this responsibility, the arvus, for when you see another yid doing an open sin, you got to rebuke them. It didn't start when the Torah was given. It started 40 years later, when the Yidden were leaving the desert, when they were in the plains of Moav. It only began, or even when they were by the Yarden. It only started then. That's why there's dots there. So it says Piskei HaTosfos that Ezra wrote these dots, and Omar, he said, Im Yomer Moshe Lomo Nakadata, if Moshe will come and tell me, that you did, the dots are good, because the dots are coming to tell you that the word has, there's some under meaning of it. There's a subplot.
More to the story,
right? Like every time there's dots, right? In Chumash, you have it numerous times. So
every time was
like Vayishakeu and Esav kissed Yankiv. What do those dots mean? Like, what would you have taished without the dots? And what do you in the Sefer Torah? There's dots. What? How would you have read it without the dots? That Esav kissed him. You kiss him with all your heart. The dots teach you that he really wanted to bite him. Or fakert, without the dots, you would think that Esav, you think he really wanted to kiss him, he wanted to bite him. The dots teach him, no, it was for real. Right? There's machlekes, how you read it.
Fashim brings that he wanted to beat him and
right,
his neck became like
right,
a stone.
exactly. That's one pshat, that's one Tana. But the other Tana says, no, the dots teach you. Without the dots, you would have thought that. The dots teach you. Right. So B'meila, the dots are always teaching you there's a subplot. So according to the Piskei HaTosfos, Ezra said like this. If Moshe would say, the dots are good, I'll give a smile. And if he says, Loma Nakadato, who asked you for the dots? Ashiv, I'll tell him, Haloilo Machachti, relax, I didn't erase anything, I just added some dots, calm down. Which sounds like Ezra was allowed to add dots. So says Reb Moshe, V'braisa ba'avos d'Rab Nosson, if you look in Avos d'Rab Nosson, which is, you have Pirkei Avos, and just like by all Mishnayos, you have the Braises, which are the extended teachings of the Tanoim, which were Braises, means outside, they were kept outside the format of the Mishnayos that Rebbe put together. So too, by Masechta Avos, it's quite short. There's a much longer version of Pirkei Avos. It's called Avos d'Rabbi Nosson. And it follows a similar format of Pirkei Avos. The same discussions, but many, many more detailed. It's incredible work. It's a shot that's not learned more often. But the Avos Rab Nosson, Perek Lamed Daled, Halacha Daled, Beloshen Acher, so here's the thing. In Avos Rab Nosson, it says something. The way we have it is not the way the Piskei HaTosfos says it. The way we have it, it says something a little scarier. And says Reb Moshe, what we have is a girsa mutas, it's a mistaken girsa. She'isa, what we have is like this. Omar Ezra said Ezra, the way we have it in our script, it says the following. Im Yava Elyoshev will come. V'yoyim Ralin will tell me, Mipnei ma kosavto kach, why did you write this? Oimer Aniloi, I'll tell him, Kvar no karati alein, but I also wrote the dots. V'im Oimer, if he'll tell me, Yafa kosavto, you wrote well, Arvin ukudim alein, I'll remove the dots. Let's read that again. The version that we have is, if Eliyahu will tell me, why did you write the words, Haniklas Lonul Vanenu, why did you write those words? Because it wasn't all the time that Yidden were responsible for each other. It only happened at the end of the 40 years. Why did you write the words? I'll tell them, listen, I wrote Nakudas on top to show that the words aren't so simple. And if he'll tell me, Yafa Kasaft, it's going to tell me, good, the words are good. Why did you write the dots? I'll take out my quill and I'll remove the dots. According to this version, Ezra is saying that I may be challenged why I wrote the words Bechlal. Why he wrote the words? He added the words. So the pshat is no, those words were originally written by Moshe. But Moshe might tell Ezra, you're the sofer, you're the editor. You should have realized those words don't belong, then you should have taken them out. According to our version, Ezra had the right to decide what goes into the Torah, what comes out of the Torah. He was like the final editor, and therefore he could take out stuff that Moshe wrote. And therefore Ezra's saying, if I will be challenged, why did I leave the words in? I should have taken them out because they're not literal. I'll say, don't worry, I wrote dots on top. And if they're going to say, good that you kept the words, why'd you write dots? I'll erase the dots. So according to that version, Ezra Pashat had the right to decide what goes in or what doesn't go into the Torah. Exactly. Says Reb Moshe Vutor's Borur. This is a major mistake. The version that we have is inaccurate. It's not shaykh that they'll ask Ezra, why'd you write them? He doesn't have a choice. Moshe wrote them from God. And if somebody erases part of the words of Torah, he's disgracing the word of God, and is a Kofer Batorah. According to Moshe Feinstein, if you take out a word from the Torah, you're a Kofer as well. Now, how does he know that? The Gemara doesn't say that. The Rambam, no, they said if you say something in the Torah is not written from Hashem, you're a Kofer.
Same thing.
No, if you take out something, how do you know to say it the flip side? Yeah. People always quote, if you add a word or take out a word, you're a kofer. Why? The Gemara said, if you say that something in the Torah Moshe wrote on his own, you're a kofer.
By erasing,
granted,
basically saying that.
So he adds, he said that's his svara. His svara is that if you take out something, how do you have the audacity to take it out? God put it in. You're clearly indicating you don't believe it came from God. If Ezra would, this is a bit of a stretch, but this is his word. He's saying
because Ezra could have had the permission.
God
from
put it
Hashem
in, exactly. God, that was the rough draft.
That was the rough draft.
The Abisha gave a rough draft.
The Rambam also says,
the Rambam does not say if you take out a word. The Rambam does not say this. That's something else. The Rambam talking about Christianity. If you say that Shabbos is now on Sunday.
Do we believe that the Torah that was given to Ezra is all from Hashem?
Yes, but Hashem gave Ezra the ability.
Where do we know that?
We'll see what you believe at the end of this year.
Yeah. Because
if we know, where do we know that?
We don't, because Ezra, it says, he just said that they said they gave Ezra the final.
No, he's learning that out from the fact that he erased.
Dealing with half a deck over here. Let's finish
that you can't erase it is we're extrapolating from you can't think that it's not written by. But you can think that it's written by Hashem, and Hashem just gave Ezra the ability to
if
edit.
You could prove that.
The Shilas is
to say that.
The Shilas to say the Abishter wrote a rough draft and it's imperfect.
He gave Ezra, not that it's imperfect, but he
Where
gave
does
Ezra
it say that?
the editing.
Shilas, are you a Kofer Batorah or you're more of a non-believer in God? If you believe the Abishter made a mistake, almost but that's a different type of thing. Is that Kofer Batorah? That's a min. That maybe is a min.
Had power to do that.
That they just learned from the words, which is the other way around.
Either way, Ezra definitely had the right to put in dots.
How do we have that? How does Ezra have the ability to put in dots if everything is from Hashem? Hashem didn't put in dots. There you go.
Is there a difference?
Yeah, but that's the answer.
There hasn't
if
been
Ezra had the ability to put in dots, Hashem wrote the whole Torah. Hashem, everything was perfect. Everything is exactly the way it should be.
You don't
gave
read
him the right
dots.
to put in dots.
You don't read dots.
What do you mean?
What's wrong with dots?
It's part of it's because it has meaning and it's written in the Torah.
No, even putting the Kudus in the Sefer
What about the truck?
It's a change.
What
That's
about
the bottom
what
line.
about the truck?
You don't put truff in the Sefer Torah.
Someone put.
You don't write truff in the Sefer
Is there a
Torah.
difference between putting in dots?
If you put Nakudis in the Sefer
putting in
Torah,
dots
not
and
that's
removing
the
a word?
passages of the Sefer Torah.
We don't know.
No, but the
An X Nakuda is possible. Worse
put underneath her.
You don't have dots in the Sefer Torah. That's the bottom of Kudus. The bottom line is the dots are a change. So if you're saying he's allowed to do the dots, why can't you say that you can edit?
Nope.
There is no difference between putting in dots and removing a word.
You're changing the Sefer Torah. Technically,
change.
no, it's change.
Let's continue, guys.
You're modifying a Sefer Torah. You're
right.
adding or ones you're subtracting. What's the difference? Add and subtract
I
is
see
exactly
a tremendous
the same.
difference in removing a word and adding a dot.
Adding a dot is just as problematic if you're
information in
saying
5
everything
minutes.
was perfect and
Shav
it's
is
from
Posel
Hashem.
Derais or Posel Drabanon. If you add
Still,
Nakudus,
you're adding something to Hashem's Torah. You're not allowed to.
La Loch, it's Posel. The Shav, if it's Posel Derais, if you add Nakudus. Could be only Posel Drabanon. Fine. Let's go weiter. So says Reb Moshe Feinstein that If Ezra would take out some words, he's a Kofer Batorah, because it's indicating that those words didn't come from God. Because if they did, how could he take them? Or it's saying the Eibishter was Hichlif, V'amar, and that Hashem is saying Shema'ata, Lo Yikosvu. Even if Ezra would say that God decided that a certain pasuk shouldn't be there anymore, Travayu Elu are Kofer Batorah. This sounds like very canoristic. Everybody, this, that, it's all kfirah. V'gam imein tzorech l'kosvan. He also says, B'chlal, the girsa that we have is very strange. If you're saying that Ezra had the choice to write them or not, and Moshe will say, why'd you write them? You should have taken it out. What's he going to answer? I wrote Nakudas on top. For Moshe, if there was no need to write it, what are the Nakudas going to help? I understand the answer. That's exactly the word of Nakudas to show. The words definitely have some meaning. The problem is they can't be taken literally. So the Nakudas help. Anyhow, but here's the thing. There's a pirish on Avos Rab Nosson called the Binyan Yegoshua. The Binyan Yegoshua lived about 200 years ago. For Yeshua folk of Lisa. We don't know much about him. But the Binyan Yegoshua learns our version is correct and says Taka Ezra had the choice of what to write, what not to write. Says Reb Moshe, Heim dvarim shaloi nitnu le'amer. I can't believe the guy said such a thing. Ezra Sefer was not masakin anything, because no prophet has the right to change anything. The pasuk says Eila ha-mitzvahs. In the end of Maseh it says these are the mitzvahs that Moshe taught, and we learn from there. Ein Navi Rashi l'chadish dover. No Navi can add to the Torah. And the Gemara says it's well. Gemara says in Megillah, even the letters Man Sapach, the final letters of Mum, Mem, Nun, Sadik, Pei, Chaf, Loimar to say which is Be'emsa, which is B'Seif Teva. Right, the way we have it, at least in Ksava Shuri, that Man Sapach have the way they are in the middle of the word and the way they are at the end of the word. So how do you know which is the middle, which is the end? So the Nevi'im said. So the Gemara says, how could the Nevi'im just come and decide? And the Gemara Taka says, no, it was forgotten and the Nevi'im just brought it back, but they weren't making a new institution. Look a couple lines later. V'chaslon loymar. May God have mercy. V'shari le'mari, may God forgive the Baal Binyan Yegoshua, who learns our Avos Rav Nosson literally that Ezra did have the right. Aval Pashut, it's a girsa mutas, it's a mistake. You have to be geiris like Piskei HaTosfos, and like the Taz writes in Yeridei Siman Reish Ayin Daled. The Taz also quotes the Avos Rav Nosson the way the Piskei HaTosfos quotes it, that Ezra had the right to write dots, not what words and letters go in or don't go in. But the way the Binyan Yegoshua learns, he learns according to our version. Ezra did have the right.
What does our version mean? This letter?
No. Our version is what he quotes. Our version is what Moshe quoted a couple lines earlier. That Ezra had the right of what does go in, what doesn't go in.
Does that have to do with the letter yet? No, we didn't get to Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid.
We're going to get there. What's strange is though the Binyan Yegoshua is actually not giving his own interpretation. He says everything I wrote comes from the Kosnos Ohr. The Binyan Yegoshua, on his commentary to Avos Rab Nosson, he quotes the Kosnos Ohr. The Kosnos Ohr, actually, this was one of this is the last discussion I actually had with your father, was about this via text message. He asked about a certain Maharam Beribi. The Maharam Beribi once met up with the Berditchever, and he said, I heard the Berditchever, I heard you know how to learn. And he said, I'm stuck in a very difficult thesis. I'm lost. Perhaps you can enlighten me. So Berditchever asked him which thesis. So he told him, and he told him all of his kashas. So Berditchever said, it's taka, very difficult thesis. He says, he took out a Sefer Tillim. He chose a certain kapitel of Tillim. The Berditchever said the kapitel, and then he explained the whole thesis beautifully from the beginning to the end, and all the questions were answered. So the Maharam Beribi asked, what type of magic trick is this? Berditchever said, no. The Berditchever said, every one of the Baalei Tosfos, see, Torah Shebal Peh is sourced in the sphere of Malchus, and that's where Dovid Hamelech is as well. David made Tillim. Each one of the Baalei Tosfos are sourced in another kapitel of Tillim. So I looked into the Tosfos, and I came to an educated estimation of who was the author of that Tosfos, and I meditated upon which kapitel corresponds to him. And I said the kapitel, and that's how I was able to understand it. And so that was a story that you... So we were discussing who the Maharam Beribi. There's a number of people called Rab Meir, and they're linked to the city of Eisenshtat. There were a few people. The most famous is the Panim Meiros, Rab Meir of Eisenshtat, the Panim Meiros. So he was about 30 years older than the Baal Shem Tov. He was born in 1670, and he was one of the greatest of the Achronim, mamash, a brilliant mind and a major scholar. And he wrote the Sefer Kosnos Ohr on Chumash. He's a big gun. And the Binyan Yegoshua says that my pshat, that Ezra did have the right to what goes in or not, I'm taking it from the Kosnos Ohr. It's the biggest pella how the Moshe Feinstein just blames it all the Binyan Yegoshua. The Binyan Yegoshua writes clearly, I'm taking it from the Kosnos Ohr, which is the Panim Meiros. The Panim Meiros was the biggest student of the Magen Avraham, and the Panim Meiros was the main teacher of Yonis and Eibeshitz, who without doubt was one of the greatest of all the Achronim. When Yonis and Eibeshitz was a kid, his parents passed away. He grew up in the house of the Panim Meiros. The Panim Meiros taught him, and the Panim Meiros is big stuff. And Moshe really is taking down a lot of people with his...
Students.
Anyway, let's go weiter. So far we see that Moshe's opinion is you can't add a letter, you can't take away a letter. It's all, you're touching with the crown of God, it's all kfirah. So al kaponim, let's continue. Call our Sefer Torah kula nichteva through Moshe Piagvura. Look on the left-hand side. Every single letter comes from Moshe, comes from God, pardon me. And whoever says that even one letter that Moshe wrote on his own is a kofer. And for sure, if somebody says that forget about Moshe writing on his own, other people wrote it. People later came and they added, or hichsiru, or anyone took something away. They're all kofer Batorah. Again, Reb Moshe Feinstein has created this yesod that if you take out even a letter, you're also a kofer. Which again is not clear in the Gemara
But what do you mean
or in the Rambam.
It's halacha.
No, the Gemara or the Rambam doesn't say if you take out a letter, like we were saying before. According to the Panim Meiros, Ezra did have the right to take out a letter. Why can't he take out a letter? I'm not denying the holiness, but Ezra was the final editor, and he was given permission by God to Reb Moshe, though, decided that if you take out a letter, it means you're denying that letter was ever placed there by God.
By the way, everyone agrees, not including Ezra, you can't. Only Ezra was able to. The argument's just Ezra.
Well, maybe Yeshua, maybe Moshe himself. Or Moshe himself could decide. The Eibusha could tell Moshe, I think you should write this. Maybe Moshe has the right, Moshe did, so to speak, correct the Eibusha in Parshas Chukas. When Hashem told Moshe, Eka asher eka, Moshe said, bad idea, and Hashem agreed to him.
No. Then if that's the case, then where do you draw the line that you say you deny?
You're right, exactly.
Anything you don't like, just remove.
Right. Correct.
No, you say Moshe did it without a...
No. For me, myself to remove.
No, let's just say, I'm saying that argument, would they disagree? Like
No, but if I tell you there were really a couple extra psukim in the Torah and Moshe took them out, where does Rambam say I'm a kofer? It doesn't say I'm a kofer. The Moshe says you're a kofer. Anyway, let's go weiter. Let's just go weiter. Listen.
Moshe didn't correct Hashem with Eka asher eka. Hashem just told them
No, Hashem told him to tell the Yidden. No, he did correct him, so to speak. That's the Pasha Pshat. When Hashem said Eka asher eka, the Pasha Pshat is that's what Moshe should tell the Yidden. Moshe said the Yidden shouldn't hear that, so Hashem said tell them Eka. You're learning that Hashem lechatchila, when he said Eka asher eka, it wasn't for Moshe to tell the Yidden. That's a drush, but the simple reading of there is a Hagor written in Rashi about that point itself. But what? So that Moshe misunderstood the Eibishter. Why is that any better? You're being matul mum doifi in the vurs, Say Moshe didn't understand. You understand, but Moshe didn't. Okay, let's go weiter.
He didn't correct Hashem.
So then what was the discussion? What was the discussion then? Let's go weiter. So, okay. So now, look on the left-hand side, about 10 lines down. So now we get to this manuscript that was in Zurich in the 1970s that was going to be printed. It says in that manuscript the following thing, that in Parshas Vayichi, when it says that Yankov placed Ephraim in front of Menashe, it says in the manuscript of Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid, it doesn't mean Yankov placed Ephraim in front of Menashe. It's talking about that years later, Moshe Rabbeinu put Ephraim in front of Menashe. When it came to the camps, the Yidden had 4 camps, and no, it's not talking about that. Or no, that story happened, but when the words say that he put Ephraim in front of Menashe, it doesn't refer to that. It refers to something later on, that Moshe Rabbeinu gave Ephraim the precedence that Ephraim should be the head of the Degel. And when the pasuk continues that he said, "No, my father," it was Yeshua telling Moshe, "My father, you shouldn't do that. Father is in my teacher, you shouldn't do that." And the answer was no, that Ephraim ultimately was greater than Menashe. So it's a whole new reading of that pasuk. So look on the left-hand side, the last words of the line says, Reb Moshe v'nimtza shehamazayif. Reb Moshe says, whoever wrote the manuscript was a Mazayif, he was a Rasha, he was an Apikoros, and he's also a fool. He says, as if Moshe decided that Ephraim should be the head of that camp, the Eibusher told him to do it. The whole pshat in the pasuk, forget about being a kfira, it's partial ludicrous.
The actual story did happen or didn't happen?
No. That might have happened, but the words Vayosem Ephraim Lefnei Menashe refers to.
It might have been later on.
Why couldn't Moshe have done that because of the story with Yaakov? I'm saying why?
No, because then who's telling him, Moshe, why would you do that? And then Moshe has to defend. It was the Eibusher's decision to put Ephraim in front of Menashe. But the big issue is something in this week's parsha. Okay, in this week's parsha we have the story of the well. In the end of Chukas, we have a story that the well disappeared when Miriam passed away. Then it came back, this Chus Moshe, and the Yidden sang a song, the Shiras Habe'er. So let's read this together. We're on number 2, the left-hand side, second. It says in the manuscript that Shiras Yisrael, that the Yidden song on the Be'er, was not Ali Be'er that's written in the Chumash, Ela Halal HaGadol. It says in the manuscript that what you have in Tehillim, Hoydul Hashem ki tov kim chasda, Hoydul Elokei Elokim, what we say before Baruch Shamar on Shabbos, that's Halal HaGadol. It was written in the Chumash, and Dovid Hamelech Hesri took out the Shirim in our Torah, and he put it in Tehillim. That's what it says in the manuscript. Says Reb Moshe, it's Kfira HaYoser G'dayla B'Torah. It's ultimate Kfira in Torah. Now, why is it Kfir in Torah? To say that something was in the Chumash and David took it out, where in the Rambam to see that's Kfira? Says Reb Moshe, it's Kfira Hayoser Gedela. And Divrei Doifi with Dovid Hamelech, it's
like
Lashon Hara against David. It's Gorua, and it's Mishum Shu B'loi Tam Klal. You know, you're not doing an Aveira because it's Kishmak. It's Rak Lahachis, he says. Like, why say it?
Why is he going against everybody? He's going against the Tzioni, he's going against the
We'll get to the Tzioni in a minute.
Everybody.
The Gam Nikasham says Reb Moshe, it sounds like in the manuscript, whoever wrote it, he denies the whole nest of Be'er Shel Miriam. Because this was the Be'er Shel, the song was said about this Be'er, V'umefarish Barichas, and it says in the manuscript that the Yidden were looking, the Chaykrim on a Be'er Mayim Tovim, they were looking for where's a good well, Tovim, V'karim, good sweet water, and it's a good place to camp upon. That's what it says in the manuscript. As if the well was just a natural spring of water underground. That's Kfira b'Masois, it's also Kfira. The Masois were Pi Hashem, the Yidden weren't deciding where to camp based on a natural spring water underground. And V'loi b'shum cheshbonis b'nei Adam, not even Shal Moshe. It says in Balois, Pi Hashem, was always Pi Hashem. Ubechol shnois hamidbar, they drank only from the Be'er of Miriam, not from underground natural well resources. And Kanira Kofer Batorah. So Reb Moshe is saying that this manuscript is full of things that mainstream Judaism doesn't believe in. So look at the next paragraph. I would say, do not print it. Not even the Dvarim Acherim, don't print any of this manuscript, because it could be that it wasn't properly checked, and who knows what else you'll find. Who knows what other things you'll find, what other skeletons. Or Befrat, it's a Safek Gadol on the whole Sefer, who wrote it. You might find something there which you can verify from other sources from Yehuda Hachasid. That's not a raya on anything else, you know. Who knows who wrote it? Who knows who forged it? Just because some things might be true, but it's full of major holes. Fine. Acharei Kosvi, after I wrote this, Hisigu Sefer Tzioni, showed Menachem Tziuni. So there was a Rishon whose name was Reb Menachem Tziuni. He lived in the end of the 1300s, passed away about 1400, 1410. He was from Speyer in Germany. He actually went to Yerushalayim to learn when he was young. There were some Chachamim there in Jerusalem. And he went to learn there. Then he came back to Germany. Because he was inspired and felt that his Chachma he got in Tzion, in Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, he called his Pirush the Tzioni. And it's an incredible Pirush. On Chumash, Al Derech HaKabbalah, the Chidor writes in his Shem Agdolim that it's an awesome Pirush, it has awesome Chidushim, it's built on the Zohar, and everybody quotes it. Even the Magen Avraham brings him the Halacha in Siman Hey. But the Megal Al-Mukas quotes him, everybody quotes him. The Shaloh quotes him, we'll see on the next page. He was big stuff. The Tzioni in this week's Parashah in Chukas, he quotes what we just saw from the manuscript of Yehuda Hachasid, that really Parshas Chukas was much longer. You had the whole Halal HaGodol from Tehillim. Hoyd Lashem Kitav Kim Chasta, Hoyd Lakim, that whole thing was written in the Chumash. And Dovid took it out. So says Reb Moshe, Umatsasi, I found Mashemar Ploni Omer Lachem. What this person in Switzerland said to you that he had in the manuscripts from Yehuda Hachasid, the Tzioni brings it b'shem Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. Says Reb Moshe, this doesn't help me. Eine mataretz klum. Vada it's Kofer Batorah. And whoever says it is Kofer Batorah. And it's Giduf, it's Lashon Hara against David. And then he says, we don't b'chlal know who the Menachem Tziuni was, which is a pella, because everybody knows who he is. Then he says, Kenira, he said, I don't think that Tzioni is falsely quoting Yehuda Hachasid. I think that Tzioni found in another manuscript. Yehuda Hachasid said this, and the Tzioni quoted over without thinking. And I would say it's also to buy and sell the Tzioni as well, because it says such a thing. You should write this to the heads of Eretz Yisrael. Now, this sounds like a letter coming from Satmar. Yeah. This is Reb Moshe was a patient man.
Did Moshe ever quote Tzioni on another stuff? That would
no,
be
he was
no,
never.
Everyone else did not.
Right.
Another thing, he seems to be going against everybody else over here. He's the only. It's him, and then he quotes because he quotes from Tosfos over here. It's like that's it.
Points. No.
No, because he brings it from the Rambam.
There's a beautiful story of Reb Moshe. There was a group of kids.
You can't handle it. It's not.
The Rambam doesn't say it's a problem.
It's okay.
There were a group of Bachrim who were in a yeshiva in New York. They were teenagers and they were getting up to trouble. And one night, late at night, they were prank calling different Gedol Yisrael. So one of them got the job to prank call Reb Moshe. He calls him like 12:30 at night. The Rebbetzin answers the phone. And the Bacher says, I need to speak to Reb Moshe, urgent Shiloh. She says, the Rav is sleeping. He says, it's urgent. Reb Moshe comes to the phone, he washes Negah. He said, what is it? So the Bacher made up some story. Reb Moshe saw right away that this was a scam. Reb Moshe asked him, where do you learn? The Bacher said, no, I'm not going to get you in trouble. Where do you learn? So he told him. So Moshe said, what Masechta are you learning? So this Bacher, he wasn't very attentive at the Shiurim. He was completely out to lunch in yeshiva. But he happened to know the Masechta. He also knew which daf they were up to. So Moshe says, do you know this and this Tosfos on the page? The Bacher said, I don't. I have no idea. So Moshe said, do you know the Gemara? The boy says, no. So Moshe said, okay. And he started explaining to him on the spot. The Gemara with Rashi explained to him. He told the kid, do you get it? Not really. But Moshe went through it again. This is at 1 a.m. on a Tuesday night. The kid finally got the Gemara. He was probably a 16, 17-year-old boy. So the Moshe then said, all right, now let's go through the Tosfos. And he explained the Tosfos to him a few times till the kid got it. So Moshe says, you understand? The boy says, yeah. Moshe says, I'm going to ask you a bomb question. And he asked him a shturim dika kasha on the Tosfos. And the Bacher got the kasha. So Moshe says, you got the kasha? The boy says, yeah. Moshe said, good. Tomorrow by Shir, you ask it during Shir. So the next day, the Maggid Shir is giving Shir, he's discussing that Gemara. They get into the Tosfos, and this Bacher raises his hand, and he throws out this bomb kasha. And the teacher's like, where'd you get this from? He says, I got it from Reb Moshe. What? He says, yeah, I was learning with him last night at 2 a.m. Anyhow, The teacher spent a week on the kasha. It took him a week till he came back and said, I think I have an answer. So years later, the bocher who became a Maggid Shir, he said that I was out to lunch completely. He says, I called Reb Moshe to harass him, but you know what Reb Moshe taught me? He told me, you think you have no shaykhs? He said, I can give you a kasha that you're going to throw your teacher, for a week you're going to be puzzling his mind. He showed me that I can get into the game. It's not foreign to me. I can be just a part of it as anybody else. He turned my life around. It's amazing. I called him to harass him, and he switched my life in the one phone call. And this guy now became a Maggid Shir. So Moshe was a very patient person. And here he comes out with his guns blazing. So let's go to the next page. We're just going to finish up. So first of all, you have to know it goes way back. The idea that certain psukim and chumash were not written by Moshe is a discussion already in the times of the Rishonim. There's a statement of the Ibn Ezra in Parshas Dvarim, so it's number 3. A very cryptic statement. Says the Ibn Ezra, V'im tovin soid hashnei maser. If you understand the secret of the 12, Gam also the secret of Vayichtav Moshe. It says Moshe wrote the Sefer Torah. And V'aknani oz ba'aretz in Lech or Bahar Hashem Yeroah. Right? It says in Parshas by the Akedah. It says that Asher Ye'omer Hayoim, it will be said today, Hashem will appear on the mountain. What does that pasuk mean? It will be said today. Does it mean when Moshe wrote it? So Moshe was writing it before they went into the Holy Land, and he was saying, it's said today that on that mountain one day God will appear? Or maybe today means something else. Maybe it was written, maybe Ezra wrote the word today. It says the Ibn Ezra, or Arsoi Eres Barzel, right? That's also a pasuk in Dvarim. Takira Emes, if you understand the secret, you'll know the truth. What in the world, what secret's he talking about? What's the secret of the 12? Well, look at the next paragraph, the Ibn Ezra in Parshas Zois HaBrocha. We mentioned that it's in Baba Basra and Menachos, the Tanoim debate about the last 8 psukim of the Chumash, who wrote them. Why the last 8? Because the last 8 starts with Moshe died there, and who wrote them? But says Ibn Ezra, 4 psukim before that, it already says, Vayal Moshe, Moshe went up on Mount Nevoy. Says Ibn Ezra, I believe Yeshua wrote it already from here. He's arguing on the Gemara. He says already, the 12th to last pasuk, Lefi Daiti, from this pasuk Yeshua wrote. Because after Moshe went up, he didn't write. The Ibn Ezra learns that the Torah was written after something happens, then the psukim write it. So if it says Vayal Moshe, means Moshe already ascended. But he wasn't writing anymore. Now, so how did Yeshua write? How does Yeshua know whatever happened up there? He wrote it through prophecy. Like when it says Hashem showed Moshe, Hashem spoke to him, Yeshua wrote that based on prophecy, but only after it happened. So that's the secret of the 12. So go back to the first statement of the Ibn Ezra. It sounds like this other psukim, the Ibn Ezra is saying it wasn't written by Moshe. So that was a major scandal.
How does he argue with the Gemara? The Gemara clearly says from
all right. Okay, I just want to finish up now. We're not finishing the discussion, just finishing the shir. But look at number 4 is the Shaloh. This is about next week's parsha. The Shaloh writes that there's a Gemara in Baba Basra that says Moshe wrote his Sefer plus Parshas Bilam. The famous statement of Gemara. For the Shaloh, is there a letter in the Torah that's not Torah? Meaning, you're saying Moshe wrote his Sefer Torah plus the Parsha of Bilam. What, Parshas Bilam is not part of the Chumash? What does it mean? So he says, Rashi says, it means the prophecies and the Mishalim of Moshe, of Bilam, even though they're not necessary to Moshe and Moshe's Torah, Moshe still wrote them. How could a holy mouth like Rashi say that? All the stories in Torah, like the Cain killing Hevel, are also not l'cher connected to the mitzvahs, but it's kulam Torah Hashem Timimah. Like it says, Timna was a Pelegish, is like Shema Yisrael. Vim dova reiku l'cher bemes lo yoreik raku mimenu. There's a Yerushalmi, it says, Ki loy dova reiku mikem. It's not empty from Yerushalmi. Says, Torah is not empty, and if you think it is, it's your problem. So says the Shaloh, what does Rashi mean that the Gemara is saying Moshe wrote his Sefer Torah, and then Parshas Balak also, which l'cher is not connected to Torah. It's part of Torah. So the Shaloh wrote in the Haggadah, after many days I found the Tzioni. Shaloh quotes the Tzioni. Reb Moshe said, you're not allowed to buy or sell the Sefer. I saw someone said the Shaloh quotes it 26 times. The Tzioni.
Okay.
So apparently you have to get some white out and cross out each time that Shaloh quotes him. But says the Tzioni says that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote other things besides Chumash. He wrote other manuscripts. And he kept documents of many things. One of them was an extended story of the story of Bilam. In the Chumash, as many psukim that there are about Bilam, it's the concise version. It's really much longer.
Wow.
And he says, just like in the Chumash, it speaks a drop about the generation of Enosh. Avraham Avinu wrote a sefer 400 prokim about the Avodah Zarah. And also the war of Midian. What are all the good stories of the Malachim flying in the air and everything? Moshe wrote it in a separate book. Levad Moshe Kofer Batorah. There he wrote it at length. Now then the Tzioni writes something very strange. In the last line he says, this book of Moshe was lost, just like numerous Sfarim from the 24 holy books were lost. I have no idea what that means, because we have the 24 holy books. But Tzioni says some of the books of the 24 Sfarim were lost. Does that mean some of the Prokim were lost? I don't know. Very strange. But he does say that Moshe wrote two things. So that would be what Rashi, the Shaloh is saying. Maybe that's what Rashi means. Moshe wrote a separate book. So
Maybe the original was lost. So the Nevi'im wrote it out of Nevuah.
Chumash? Oh, and the Chukas at the end of it. Right, exactly. Yeah. In the end of this week's parasha, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Right. So there was another fellow called Reb Menashe Klein. Menashe Hakatan, he lived in Borough Park. He wrote a sefer called Mishneh Halachos. Some people called it Mishana Halachos, those that were unhappy with his psukim. They're changing halach. But he was a big Rav in Borough Park, and he wrote a very huge word, a svarim of Tshuvas. It's huge, it's big. Mishneh Halachos, it's very geschmack, and he was a Chassidish, he was obviously a huge lamdan, and he wrote a long letter all about the Tzioni and about this manuscript. And he completely disagreed with Reb Moshe. He goes so far to say that Reb Moshe never even wrote what we saw. So it's funny, imagine like this. Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid is saying, what you think Moshe wrote, Moshe didn't write. Reb Moshe says, what you think Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid wrote, Rabbi Hachasid never wrote. Says Menashe Klein, what you think Reb Moshe wrote, he never wrote either. It's all a bunch of phantoms writing this. Reb Menashe Klein says, based on this Tzioni that the Shaloh brings, you know what? Go back to the fact that in this week's parsha, when we say that Dovid got Hamelech HaGadol from Moshe, it wasn't written in Parshas Chukas.
Another book.
Moshe wrote it in the other book, which is mentioned in the Moshe wrote it. That's where Dovid got it from. It says L'sichan Menachem Tziuni. Why is Dovid thinking about what happened to Sichan and Oig? He didn't witness it. Moshe wrote it. Dovid got it from there. It was never part of Parshas Chukas. And this is what Rav Menashe Klein is Meir for a couple pages about, and he brings lots of proofs. He says Reb Moshe, maybe out of his kanos, or he thinks maybe he never wrote part of the tshuva. But even if Reb Moshe wrote it, he says Reb Moshe missed a nuance. It never meant that it was mamish part of the Parshas Chukas.
Reb Moshe wrote. How do we have the ability to say yes or no? I mean, this is a
Exactly.
recent thing.
Yeah.
Something we can.
Well, he had students and he had family. That lots of things they.
Get a cryptographer.
Even by the Vilna Gaon, right? They would say certain letters, weren't written by him. They were written ki'ilu in his name, but he wasn't aware of it.
What's going on in Israel today? You have a rabbi, he might be a little bit...
Exactly. That's
right,
exactly.
So,
it's happening today. And it happened 30 years ago.
With Moshe? Is there any other places where you can say that?
There are some others.
I mean, clearly this person has a source. This rabbi in Borough Park has a source.
Right.
Where he's basing his whole thing on that.
And after you hear that story,
well, hold on. I just want to finish. I want to finish with one more thing. One more thing is number 5. So what happened was, after Reb Moshe wrote his first letter that we learned, it was sent to the rabbis of Eretz Yisrael. Who were they? Reb Shlomo Zalman Aurbach and Reb Elyoshev. The two biggest gedolim. Reb Elyoshev was more of a misnagid. Reb Shlomo Zalman had a good relationship with Chassidim, with Lubavitch. And both of them said to this fellow in Switzerland, in Zurich, that you want to put out the manuscript, you got to take out all the problematic parts. And you could print a new one and write in the introduction to the new one that the old one had some iffy stuff. And So Reb Moshe, when he heard about it, he said, bad idea. He says, who knows how much other stuff there is in the book that we just haven't censored yet? And then he says one thing, I'll just finish with this. He says, Va'ani ra'isi, I said number 5. When Rab Daniel Levy of Switzerland sent me some other material that this manuscript wants to weaken the issue of Mishkav Zachor. Chada, it says in the manuscript, why did Torah aser man and man? Because Hashem wants men to marry women to have children. That's what it says in the manuscript. Says Reb Moshe, horrible, kfira to say that. Why? Chada, to ask a question, why did God forbid it? That itself is rishus gedola. It weakens the iser in front of anyone who wants to, to partake of this terrible to'eva. Even goyim know it's a to'eva. See where the world has come in a couple decades. Even the world knows it's a to'eva, a to'eva she'en kamoisam.
People the right to edit a manuscript from Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid.
No, he's saying it's not from. No. It's not. First of all, no one says Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid's handwriting. What it is at best is a copy of a copy, which means who wrote it?
Do your work and find out if it's an accurate manuscript.
Either or.
This is his
Either
word.
or.
This is his
That's
word.
what Moshe is saying.
He's saying if you're a rational person, it's
No,
clear to you.
Moshe is saying even worse. Moshe says, I'm scared there's other stuff you won't catch.
Don't let it out.
Exactly.
But that's worse.
Why is that worse?
Because then you're really censoring the entire
Doesn't
document.
believe it's from him.
He doesn't believe it's from him.
That's not why.
No,
that's why.
that's why.
Some of he's saying there's other stuff. He said there's some of it. It's
No.
not from him.
and therefore we don't want to edit.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
No. The 10% that you can actually verify from other sources is good.
Problematic issue.
And he's saying whoever forged it, put some truth inside.
So find out if it's a forgery.
That's what
That's
Moshe said.
he is.
That's not what Moshe
No,
said.
he calls it a
said it's a
messiah.
forgery.
Moshe
He
said
calls
it's
it a forgery.
But we should find out if it's a forgery. Moshe should
find
find
out.
out. if it's a
How are we going to know
forgery.
better than Moshe?
Moshe is saying it's a forgery because he doesn't believe what he's saying, but he's saying that based on that Tzioni's a fraud too.
How can you
So that's
verify?
what his logic is. That's horrible.
How can you verify it's a forgery 600, 700 years ago?
Overrule Moshe's
Absolutely. Reb Moshe is saying the whole thing from
How can you
Tzioni's a
verify?
fraud.
How can you
That's a
verify
good question.
it's a
That's
What do
what
you
he
mean
brought
it's a
up.
good question? There's Shaloh and everybody else is saying that Tzioni's not. So clearly,
And that's why
not
someone
Reb
else,
Moshe.
by the way, that's why someone else says that Moshe's a fraud,
No,
not Moshe,
that-
but that this is a fraud.
Clearly,
Okay,
so
that's
you
the
have to
shear.
find out.
That's the shear. That's exactly the shear.
How are you going to find out?
I tried to get hold of it. No, so the first
There's
version
ways
was
that they
printed.
do
Yeah, it
that.
was
What are you
printed.
kidding me? I didn't think they
Yeah,
do
that's
any
it. Yeah, it
manuscript.
was.
carbon
And they
dating,
wanted him
stuff
to
like
make a
that.
second
Lots
one
of
without
things.
the
It's not
negative
just
stuff.
carbon dating.
But Moshe said,
Not just carbon
you can't just
dating.
take out
They
3
do
or
it for
4
all
things.
sorts of
Who knows?
stuff.
Handwriting
Anyway, but
analysis.
hold on, I just want to finish this because this is actually very, very strange. So the Moshe says, "Ain't circles that you don't have to explain why man to man is a to'eva. The whole world knows it's disgusting, and the Welt looks at such people as menuvalim. You see how mamish the world. The einam in yishuv klal. People look at them as aliens." Now, and when you ask why did Hashem aser, it's almost giving people, oh, maybe it's taka not so bad. And you're saying you're making it like it's really not inherently an issue. Why did God aser? And not that the answer. What was the answer? In order to get married and have kids. That's the reason. So what if someone's like, oh, I have kids, I don't need kids? Then it's mutter. It's almost like saying there's no erva man to man. It's just
A side thing.
to do the
mitzvahs
mitzvah of
aseh,
having
see.
kids. It's also lahadfis.
Good question.
Like kfira, because now he said this is called megala panim b'Torah shaloi ka'alocha. Ukahai gavna could be to find more things in the sefer. He says vadai. He said nobody has looked through the whole manuscript from beginning to end. I don't have time. Therefore, you can't print even one thing. Now, the strangest thing is Tosfos on Chumash in what's called Moshe's Kainim on Parshas Achreimus, where it speaks about man to man. The Tosfos says, B'Shem Rabbi Yehuda Hachasid. Why did Hashem aser it? In order to get married and have children.
I think they should throw
And
out
not just that.
Yehuda Hachasid.
The Ramban says the same thing in different words. The Ramban says man to man's a problem because it's not going to help the continuation of the world. You have to have kids.
But somebody who has kids already?
No, it's Hashem Asher. He asked, but this is just
Aser, it's Aser.
Okay.
why Hashem Asher could be 100. This is one of the reasons.
Which, by the
But
way,
you see, it's the strangest. It seems like it's like you expect like a Satmar Chassid to write this. Tosfos writes it. The Ramban writes almost the exact same
Who
thing.
writes this?
This is Reb Moshe. This is Reb Moshe in his second letter.
Quotes also the same.
This is Reb Moshe.
So
Okay.
that guy that says that Moshe didn't write this also says he didn't write this, probably.
No. You can't. I can't say everything. No.
No,
Then
he's
what
saying
the
he's a
hell is
kofer.
going on here?
Here he's saying he's a kofer.
So what's going on here?
No. Menashe Klein never said the whole letter's a forgery. He said part of it. The part where the Moshe said about the Tzioni, I don't know who he is.
Right.
Don't bind to sell the Sefer. In fact, I didn't quote this, but Reb Moshe Feinstein, you know what you should do with the manuscript of Yehuda Hachasid? You have to burn it. He said burn it. He said burn it.
This is the Taliban. Take
People
down
are
the
busy
stores.
learning it. People
Rambam.
and
It's like
Reb
the
Moshe
Rambam
says
back
burn
in the
it.
day.
He
Burn
says
his
burn it.
books. We're going
Anyhow,
back
all
to
right,
the
we'll end
Middle
over here.
Ages.
Gewaldig.
It can't be. This can't be Reb Moshe.
Now
He has
we
a
have
big
to share
yeshiva,
discussion.
Menashe Klein.
Yeah, sure.
On
sure.
16th
This is from the Moshe Feinstein, but yeah,
Such
sure.
such a stopper.
I'm still stuck on one
You know
concept.
what?
The idea
1578.
you can't take
Oh, wow.
anything out of the Torah, yeah? Mendel.
I remember
But you can take things out of.
Where do you draw the line?